Hello and welcome to this round 5 here at GP Prague. I'm Tim Willoughby, joined by Matej Zalkai in the booth, and we are covering off Joao Choca against Immanuel Gerschenson here in the feature match area. We're going to get to go down to their match and see exactly what they've got going on. On the left of our screen, it looks like Choca has elected to be on Miracles. It's a deck that we're going to see a fair amount of this tournament. We saw in our turbo match last round, Andres Strasky doing his thing with it. On the other side, though, Blue-Red Delver for Immanuel Gerschenson, so he's going to be looking to get Delver Secrets in play pretty fast and play more of a tempo game. Yeah,
I've been speaking to Immanuel over the past couple of weeks. He's been really focused on playing this Blue-Red Delver deck that himself and some other Austrian players are playing. And it's very similar to the burn deck from that we saw in the last round, but it just has the blue cards. Now you see the advantage. Gitaxian Probe. Oh, I know what you're doing. You have 2 Force of Wills. Great.
Force of Will elected not to counter Monastery Swift Spear, but Swift Spear gaining a prowess trigger thanks to that Gitaxian Probe, so it will be attacking for at least 2 this turn. And in fact, at most 2.
Yeah. So the Blue-Red Delver deck is pretty aggressive. It also it plays some Young Pyromancers and Storm Chaser Mages. Also plays, there's 1 Fire Blast, but it still basically plays out like a burn deck. And now that weaker hand from Joao makes sense now, because he mulliganed and he scried a Sensei's Divining Top to the top.
I mean, this does mean that Gerschenson still has full information on what's in Choca's hand. He cracks a Polluted Delta to fetch a second land here, and I think that basically this is very much a make hay while the sun shines moment. Try and get the damage in before Choca is able to get too much going. And if you can bait out that Force of Will, so much the better. Yeah,
basically Immanuel is, for this tournament, he's banking on the fact that Price of Progress, in his mind, was one of the better cards that you could be running, and he wanted to make sure that he's going to punish his opponents if they stumble. So combining that burn with Price of Progress element together with some of the blue draw spells is really where he wanted to be.
Yeah, speaking of blue draw spells, Brainstorm there, the draw for Gerschenson. Now, unlike the burn deck that we saw last round, this is a deck that will hurt itself a little bit with Price of Progress. The idea, though, that it's making a tempo play. Yep. You're taking some damage, they're taking the same, if not more, plus you're attacking their life total a little bit more aggressively.
Yeah, and not only does the Brainstorm resolve and pump up the Monastery Swift Sphere, Immanuel is able to shuffle away 2 lands, which is really important. This deck can really function well on 2 lands very easily. And we know with its dazes and burn spells and cheap creatures, it can be really good. And let's see if he has some more prowess. I see a Ponder as well. One of the more unfortunate things is that a couple of cards that he added to the deck for some other matchups really not great against Miracles. I mean, he has 1 Vapor Snag, and he also has, I think, 2 Fork Bolts. Whereas, Chain Lightning is maybe abstractly better, but in a lot of the matchup, he wanted to have access to the Fork Bolts.
I guess it's nice in some respects to at least know when it comes to sideboarding, you've got a few cards that you can fairly happily remove. As things stand, though, a couple of spells been cast this turn. That die there just indicating the amount of prowess going on. First, there was Brainstorm, then Ponder, now Lightning Bolt. So that Monastery Swift Spear coming in for 4, and Choca's life total moving down comparatively quickly.
Yep. Immanuel's trying to deal as much damage as possible before any counterbalance shenanigans happen, and he's been quite successful in it, and still has 4 cards in his hand, so he's in decent shape. I wonder if Joao is going to go for like a naked Monastery Mentor with Force of Will backup. That could be pretty good to turn the game around.
We could have a real fight going on in our Monastery here. As things stand, though, he activates the Sensei's Divining Top, doesn't see too much he likes, then uses a fetch land to shuffle and has another look at the top 3. Sees Predict, Counterbalance, and Force of Will. A relatively easy choice in terms of what goes on the top there, I would imagine.
Never a bad thing to have a Counterbalance in play. But it doesn't seem like he went for it. But I didn't see the order exactly. Yeah, he went for the Predict there.
I guess that with the Predict, you get to draw 2 cards completely reliably. You already know what's the top card of your deck, so you get to name it. You're not revealing the Counterbalance, you're revealing the Force of Will, so your opponent doesn't necessarily realize that you have the Counterbalance just yet.
I see Immanuel does draw a Price of Progress. If he won't, he can maybe try to play it and force Joao to sacrifice his Flooded Strand if he has some good cards on top, but Obviously, Immanuel doesn't know that. It's the nice game of hidden information. There's a lightning bolt that makes the Swift Spear a 2-3, so puts Joao in very dangerous position when it comes to his life total.
So first up comes the predict in response to lightning bolt. And lo and behold, Joao able to get rid of that force of will, draw a couple of cards, those being wear tear and a counterbalance.
Yeah, he actually plays one wear tear in his main deck, which is a very interesting choice.
Though we did see its power when you have your countertop lock going on earlier on, so maybe that's part of the reason there.
But there's the advantage of playing blue in your burn deck. Force of willing back, adding a prowess trigger as well, while getting rid of a useless wafer snag. I can't imagine it going much better for Immanuel in this spot. What Immanuel could have also done in response to that predict, he could have sacrificed. He could have sacrificed his Scald in turn to find a mountain, maybe to play a Price of Progress to force Joao to sacrifice his flooded strand to be able to not be dealt as much damage. But Immanuel decided to hold off on that, and Joao just goes down to 4.
And I guess that there's a vague temptation. Tell me how you feel about this one, Matej. To if you don't have to show the Price of Progress game 1, you don't show it. It's one of the cards that's a little bit more unusual and could really impact on the way that Joao played games 2 and perhaps 3.
True.
If you can get away with it, maybe one to hold back on.
Yeah, an interesting play was there. Joao was actually going for the blind draw with the Sensei's Divine Top, looking for a Swords to Plowshare. He had that white mana open, and if his top card there had been that Swords to Plowshares, he would have been still in 4 life. But now he had to take that Monastery Swift Spear hit, and has to try to dig himself out of trouble. But being at 1, he will not even be able to cast the Force of Will for its mana costs. So if he doesn't have anything, yeah, I mean,
he set up Terminus on the top of
yes,
his deck
exactly,
with Sensei's Divining Top. So at least the Monastery Swift Spear itself is not going to be able to get the job done, but we know that Immanuel Gerschenson has plenty of options when it comes to finding ways of dealing damage.
Yeah, Joao can't play Force of Will, can't play Counterspell, can't do anything. Immanuel takes the game 1. And with his Blue-Red Delver deck, again, just similar to the burn deck, like really taking advantage of the fact that he played first, he had a very good information and had some pressure at the start, and Joao didn't have anything to answer it.
And it's kind of cool that we got a chance to see regular burn against counterbalance in our More Magic just before this round. Then we got a chance to see this variation on burn, so we got a couple of different options going on here. But now we have a slightly different matchup going on. On the left of our scene, Artem Vnukov, he has Shardless Agent Bug, Shardless Bug, cascades into Ancestral Vision some of the time. In this case, though, suspending it the old-fashioned way. And on the right-hand side of our screen, this is Bug Delver, so a little bit more of a straightforward bug deck, but already a Gurmag Angler in play, the big 5/5 that can cause all sorts of trouble for opponents that are relying on slightly smaller creatures.
Yeah, it's interesting. Actually, it's not just Bug Delver. It's actually Grixis Delver, with that one tropical island being splashed, only there for the Deathrite Shaman.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it's basically 4-color Delver, but the main 3 colors are blue, black, and red. The main thing being here, as you can see, the Cabal Therapy in his graveyard. That's the combo with Young Pyromancer. So because it fuels the 2 cards fuel themselves, so that's the main interaction of this deck compared to the green versions, which run Tarmogoyf in that slot.
Yeah, I think the only other green element in Martin Dang's build is actually the flashback on Ancient Grudge.
Yes. Also, yeah, he runs Painful Truth as well, but that doesn't matter. He could when he runs a 4-color deck. So, but I like the Gurmag Angler though.
I mean, it's interesting to me that when we first saw Tasigur and Gurmag Angler, it felt like it was obvious that you play Tasigur more because Tasigur has so many more abilities. As it turns out, just being able to cast your 5/5 for a single black mana a lot of the time, and it having 1 more point of power than Tasigur, enough that Gurmag Angler has locked up a spot in Legacy, which is no mean feat.
Yeah, also interesting side interaction. Gurmag Angler doesn't get bounced by Caracas. which is quite relevant in some matchups. So you get the extra power and some other, because honestly you're not going to get to use the ability of the Tasker that much. So you'd rather have the extra power, even though it costs you basically one more card in the graveyard.
Shardless Agent netting a Tarmogoyf for Artem Vnukov. A powerful little spell there. Cascade just does a huge amount for these decks. Obviously, one of the dreams is hitting Ancestral Vision, but just getting more power on the board, in this case, enough to have Martin Dang shuffling up his cards. That the win there for Vnukov. So, I think we're going to get a chance to head back to our main match while they're still shuffling. That means I reckon it's a good time to start thinking about sideboard cards for Joao Choca against Immanuel Gerschenson.
Yeah, Immanuel has a fairly wide sideboard, a lot of 1 and 2-ofs, but for this matchup I think he added quite a late Spell Pierce to his sideboard instead of a second Flusterstorm, which he still has. But he also gonna bring in Sulfuric Vortex, as well as I assume the Pyroblast and the Sulfur Elemental, because it has split second, means it can't get countered, and it also kills the tokens from a Monastery Mentor, which is a nice interaction on the Sulfur Elemental from Immanuel Gerschenson. On the other side, Joao shows he'll probably bring in something like maybe Engineered Explosives. Maybe a Pyroblast as well. His sideboard's not that well set up. Similar to Andrei Stratsky last round, he just doesn't seem to have anything dedicated for this kind of matchup.
Yeah, his A plan is quite good, but he needs for that plan to work. And unfortunately, if it doesn't work, he doesn't really have a plan B. Yeah,
he might bring in Vendilion Clicks if he just wants something that trades with Delver of Secrets. I don't think definitely not Blood Moon. Maybe Surgical Extractions, but that just doesn't seem like it's doing enough. So he'll be able to rely mostly on his main deck with just a couple of small additions. And I'm actually really looking forward to how he approaches this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Joao, he's a player that I've played a reasonable amount. He's a London-based player, so I know him fairly well. And he's got a huge amount of experience. He both judges and plays locally a lot. And he likes intricate decks with lots of decisions. So I'm not surprised whatsoever to see him playing Miracles in Legacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the default decks for a lot of really great Legacy players, just because it gives you so much control over what you're doing. You have a very powerful game plan. So, and speaking of a powerful game plan, Sturvan Sensei's Divining Top is always good in my book. Let's see if Immanuel has something to match it. And Delver's Secrets it is.
Yeah, Gitaxian Probe meant that he got a little bit of a look at what Choca has going on. He knows that there's not going to be the lightning fast combo with Counterbalance. We will find out how long it takes Choca to assemble that soon enough, if indeed he's able to at all. But the combo of Spell on top of my deck plus Delver of Secrets looks like one that's going to be very easy for Gerschenson to achieve here, as a Brainstorm at the start of turn before drawing a card means that with the trigger on the stack, Delver of Secrets is incredibly likely to be able to find a spell on top of Gerschenson's deck.
I love this interaction.
So really here the decision for Gerschenson was, which card do I want to reveal? I'm gonna reveal a Lightning Bolt. How do you feel about that? By the way, now my Delver of Secrets is a flying Insectoid Aberration, dealing 3 every turn on the attacks.
That was actually a really tense spot for Immanuel, because he has a Pyroblast in his hand, but playing that Brainstorm means that he has to let his guard down a little here, but the Polluted Delta fetching Volcanic Isle now means he can hold up some mana. Maybe even has a follow-up creature, but I don't see all the cards in his hand. I did see a Force of Will in his hand, though.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to be able to hold up blue spells if he needs to. In the meantime, goes for the old Monastery Swiftspear. That's extra damage on the board. And Joao taking the full 4 points here.
Yeah, great start for Immanuel. Ideally, he would have preferred not to have been forced to play the Brainstorm to flip the Delver there, but he's still in decent shape. And even if Joao actually now manages to play Counterbalance, it doesn't actually impact Immanuel's game plan that much, just because he already has a board. So Joao needs like a Terminus or something to really impact the board. With a Prowess creature on the board, you can also just keep jamming spells into the Sensei's Divining Top Counterbalance combo.
Yeah, everything becomes an expensive, weird form of fire breathing almost.
Pretty
at that
much.
Point. But we saw that Joao actually shuffled away a counterbalance with his fetch land. He saw it there. He had the option of waiting and drawing into it, but it looks like he recognizes that right now the most important thing for him to do is find a way of dealing with what's on the board. He knows that there's the potential for a force of will anyway, so it's not as if counterbalance on its own just locks things right up.
Yep. So he actually tries to dig for the terminus, or for the brainstorm, so that he can put the terminus on top of his library and play that during Immanuel's turn. That's what at least that's what I believe he's trying to do here. He has to be a little careful here with his lands, but yeah. He wanted to put 2 lands on top and shuffle them away, but I think he now realized that he needs to put a terminus on top and try to go for it on Immanuel's turn. I like this interaction that thanks to Sensei's Divining Top, you can play terminus on your opponent's turn, because the miracle trigger says whenever you draw a card for the first card each turn, you can play it for the miracle's cost.
Yeah, as long as you're drawing a card and it's the first one you draw on the turn, it doesn't matter whose turn it is.
Exactly.
Well, right now, if Price of Progress comes along, it's hurting Immanuel Gerschenson more than it would be Joao Choca. As things stand, though, he doesn't mind too much because he's just going to rumble in the red zone. 4 more damage there, and Joao Choca going down to 11.
Yeah, and this was fairly interesting. He took the damage first because he doesn't want to maybe you spend his Sensei's Divining Top, so he's going to take the damage. He's going to do it now in his draw step. Now that the terminus is the first card drawn on his turn, yeah, he'll try to go for it here. Now he has more mana to work with. Might be a little better, even though he had to take 4 for this luxury.
And Force of Will removing days. Not ideal to have to get rid of additional counter magic, but in this case there really wasn't any other option. And now Choca starts sacrificing fetch lands, getting those shuffles on.
Like looking, where is it?
Wait a second. There we go.
Because we know he can have a Pyroblast. We saw some in his deck.
It's interesting to me that Miracles is essentially a blue-white deck, but it's almost universal that they're running red now because Pyroblast and Red Elemental Blast just so powerful against all of the blue decks that are knocking about. Engineered Explosives and a counterbalance lurking on top of Joao Choca's deck at this point.
There's a potentially very interesting interaction with Joao's Engineered Explosives. I don't know if you have seen the update of the rules when Shadows of Innistrad came to play. It said that flipped cards now don't have the 0 casting cost, but it's the casting cost of the front side. So now actually an Engineered Explosive for 1 could kill both the creatures on the board. And
that'll be something that Choca, as a judge, is well aware of. He'll be able to make sure that that one works out exactly as he needs it to.
Yeah, but it was really interesting last turn where he didn't decide to Terminus on his own turn, whereas he now plays a Snapcast Mage to block there, but he knows about Lightning Bolt in Immanuel's hand, but now also a Pyro is being shown. That's actually 5 damage on board thanks to the prowess. Immanuel can actually go for... He can put Joao down to 2 if he really wanted to, if he plays the Lightning Bolt, unless he shuffled it away, of course. No, he still has it. So Joao down to 5 here. So there's the explosives.
Cast it for 1.
So I'm sure he knows about the interaction, as you said. He is a judge after all, but he has to be careful about his own top, so... He has another one. Certainly, he won't mind drawing a card off of it here.
Protecting one's top. Also, by the way, just drawing a card, which happens to be a counterbalance.
Yeah.
There've been worse turns.
Yeah, he's still. Yeah, he has the backup top, so he can actually even lead off with a counterbalance first, and then blow up the explosives for one.
Yeah, this is a great test spell.
What does Immanuel think about that?
Certainly not ecstatic.
Well, we know he has the Lightning Bolt. But okay, he didn't do anything here. So there it is. So engine explosive for 1, actually killing the Delver of Secrets thanks to that rule change recently. And I actually really like the rule change. I never liked having my Hun Master of the Fells when it's flipped being killed by something like Smother or similar.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it makes a lot of sense. But young Pyromancer successfully getting down here against Counterbalance. There's no senses to running top to help back it up. And the Pyromancer representing quite a lot of damage potentially.
I didn't actually quite like... he can still wait, but I would have liked to see the Lightning Bolt played immediately. Just because now, if Joao has a 1 casting cost card on top, the Lightning Bolt will get countered. If he goes for the blind flip, which we assume he will. Yeah. It's a 3 though, so...
So the Lightning Bolt looks like it's going to resolve.
Yeah, Joao down to 1. Never a good spot to be when you're on Miracles. Suddenly when your fetch lands become useless, you're in a bad shape. Yeah,
Miracle's a deck that can make more use out of its fetch lands than most. We've seen so many times already just in this match. Shuffle effects being able to be deployed a little bit more tactically than just, oh, I need to fetch a land. Look, I have fetched a land.
Immanuel even going for that extra elemental token here, playing a Daze. At risk if there's a Terminus, there's no Terminus, so we know that the game is over, but...
yeah, Gerschenson's going to have to wait a moment or two to find that out. There's the handshake. Immanuel Gerschenson, he advances to 5-0. Lovely start for him in this tournament. We have a little bit more magic in this main match, though. We're going to get a chance to head across and see a little bit of, as they're shuffling up, Martin Dang in his game 2 up against Artem Vnukov. So Shardless Bug on the left of our screen. It's more of a Grixis Delver on the right and another copy of Young Pyromancer. Now, as you mentioned earlier, the trick with Young Pyromancer in this build is how many cool things it can do with Cabal Therapy.
Yeah, but when I looked at Martin Dang's deck list, actually he doesn't run too many Cabal Therapies, only 2 in his main deck. So but he does run 2 Gurmak Anglers, which is interesting. But yeah, it's certainly not a Sultai Delver deck. It's a Grixis Delver, but that 1 Tropical Island really deceiving our scorekeeper.
And presumably Vnukov as well. I mean,
yeah, potentially.
The sort of, there's a lot of core cards that get played in quite a few decks in Legacy. The moment where your opponent plays a Brainstorm on turn 1 off an island doesn't necessarily tell you anything about what they're playing, apart from the fact that they're definitely not Death and Taxes or Eldrazi.
True. You can see like Martin already played quite a few spells there. I mean, there's Daze and a Ponder in his graveyard. One more card that I can't quite make out. But ooh, that's an unexpected card. Dimir Charm.
I like it. It does a lot of different things. One of the things that it's going to do here is deal with this Young Pyromancer.
Yeah, it kills a creature with I think power 2 or less. Also counters a sorcery spell, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
I don't know what the third mode is, though.
Nobody does. It's a mystery, which is kind of appropriate for the Dimir.
No, I love casting Legacy just because I sometimes don't know the cards that are being played, and I just want to see what they do. So
yeah, you get a moment of surprise and delight, I believe they call it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly. So I just have to look up the Dimir Charm. It counters a sorcery, it restores a creature with power 2 or less, or you look at the top 3 cards of target player's library and you put 1 back and the rest into the graveyard.
There's definitely moments for that. As it is, we see Wasteland being the play from Artem Vnukov, Dismember coming from Dang, who doesn't want that Deathrite Shaman to get out of hand, and who very much does want extra elemental tokens in play, and that clears the path for attack for 3 here from Martin Dang, the Pro Tour winner. And
what a turn!
Wastelands all round, and ultimately it's Vnukov here who's on the wrong side of it with just a swamp in play.
Yeah, that was brutal. Like, force of will your play, then Wasteland and Dismember 2 of your permanents while developing my board. That was just ridiculous there.
Judge foil copy of Polluted Delta there. So Martin Dang out of the woods when it comes to mana problems. Shardless Agent from Vnukov here. A spin of the wheel. What's he going to find? It's another Deathrite Shaman. Not too sad about that one. There's plenty of lands in the graveyard, so he's got all sorts of coloured mana available on top of being able to eat assorted cards in each graveyard for powerful effects.
Yeah, that's one of the problems for the kind of Grixis Delver deck, that just Shardless Agent is just so good on getting you back into the game. So, Martin is trying to keep Artem off balance for as long as possible, but, with a one simple 3 casting cost cards, he can be straight up back in the game. Even worse than Deathrite Charm would be something like Tarmogoyf, and even Ancestral Vision, would have been very helpful.
Yeah, it's really not difficult to hit card advantage on any card with Cascade. It would only be on those occasions where you hit counter magic or something you literally couldn't play at that moment, that it would be a simple 1-for-1 with yourself. Lightning Bolt dealing with the Deathrite Shaman, getting another elemental token for Martin Dang.
So one more Lightning Bolt Martin Dang, maybe? Was the Dismember? He's thinking about it. The question is if he wants to expose his Young Pyromancer for the trade.
Everyone's coming in. Shardless Agent trades off with Young Pyromancer. Single digits now for Vnukov.
Yeah. Checking the life tools there. There were some inconsistencies, it seems.
Baleful Strix the follow-up. If it resolves, he's going to get to draw a card off this one.
Yeah, he played it and passed the turn immediately, and he's trying to explain, I get to draw the card. I didn't forget the trigger. It's just like, Baleful Strix and go. Baleful Strix is another one of those cards I really like.
Yeah, I mean, to me,
so
it's
sweet.
The epitome of a value card.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
cast it, you draw a card, and then when it's in play, all of those lines of text are super relevant. Flying, Death Touch. It's a very powerful card.
Yeah, I would have liked to see someone do fancy things with it and Goblin Welder or something.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that with it. I mean, also it's a blue card for Force of Will.
Exactly,
I mean,
yeah, it just does so many things. No wonder it's being played in Grixis Delver, in Sultai, Shardless Agent decks, and wherever. It's just so super solid and so great against the Eldrazi Menace.
Well,
oh wow.
If you're going to have one card in hand, then a Daze for your opponent's Jace the Mind Sculptor, a fine option.
Indeed, that was a good draw for Martin Dang. Countering that Jace. Doesn't have the Young Pyromancer anymore, but has still plenty of damage on the board. That I think if Artem doesn't have Toxic Deluge, then he'll be in trouble.
I mean, even Toxic Deluge, he's going to take a bit of damage to play it. So
exactly. Only one though, but still puts him in Lightning Bolt range.
Yes. But Martin Dang, he needed this game. He's already a game down against the Shardless Bug deck on the other side of the table. So all this will do is square things up and force a game 3 if he's able to ride out one more turn of attacks and finish this game off.
Yeah, and to be honest, that Jace wasn't even that impactful. Jace, the Mind Sculptor on a board facing off against 4 creatures, it's not that great, but we'll see if now that Artem Vnukov knows what the Martin Dang is bringing to the table, that now that he knows that it's Grixis Delver rather than Sultai Delver, maybe he'll board a little differently.
Let's have a little look at these sideboards, see if we can figure out a few more details about exactly how they may be changing their decks in between games here. Martin Dang, you mentioned that he's got the 2 copies of Cabal Therapy in the main. He's got an extra one in the sideboard as well. He can be doing plenty of Baleful Strix tricks. He's got that one actually did come in from the sideboard, so I'm guessing he brought both of those in.
Yep.
I mean, this is a sideboard full of sort of value removal cards, and that's kind of what we're talking about here for this deck in general. When we talk about value, what we're saying is you play one card, your opponent uses some number of. But we're going to get a chance to look in on another match while they're sideboarding. On the right of our screen, that's Daniel Toledo. He's on another Shardless Bug deck, but his has Hymn to Torak, which we see on the stack at the moment. And Hymn to Torak's on both sides because this is a Shardless Bug mirror that has gone to game 3.
This is a little bit old school, right? I mean, the turn 2 Hymn to Torak's players trading this efficient discard spell, but some new age creatures on the battlefield and Deathrite Charm, Baleful Strix.
Now, the reason that Hymn to Torak's so powerful I mean, making someone discard 2 for 2 mana is already pretty solid, but the fact that it's random means that you can hit lands, and that means that sometimes you can have games that are over before they've even started, as your opponent just never draws the lands they need.
Yeah, I remember those old time. People were scared of Dark Ritual, hypnotic specters sometimes. Yeah, but I remember those terrifying openings of Dark Ritual into Duress, into Him to Turak.
Yep, they definitely happened. There were many a game that got spoiled by Him to Turak and maybe even a Mind Twist to get rid of cards completely at random, and now he gets to see a Dismember from Daniel Toledo to clear a path so Baleful Strix can attack and start to redress the balance on life totals. Pierre Sommen dropping to 18, I believe.
Yeah, but I think Pierre will be able to get back on the board by playing a Shardless Agent here. This is just the dynamics of the mirror match is really interesting, where you both try to go for as much value with those Shardless Agents, trying to get those ancestral visions resolved, because this matchup is so much about the card advantage and positioning, because it's very unlikely that any player will be able to out-tempo the other.
Yeah, this is not the kind of match where you see gigantic haymaker plays that are going to completely change the face of the board. The best that you're going to get is things like this Shardless Agent. Let's see what it hits into this time.
Ooh, that is a haymaker, kind of. It's one of the best things you can be doing.
A 3-mana 2/2 that draws you 3 cards when it comes into play.
Yep.
Pretty good.
Pretty good indeed. And now also has drawn him into Abrupt Decay. He has a Baleful Strix on his own, and I think he drew another Shardless Agent, which means that he'll be able to keep going. That's one of the part of the problem of this matchup, is once a player has done something like that, he has a big advantage for future board development.
Well, there are Shardless Agents on both sides. I can see one there in Daniel Toledo's hand. Definitely a temptation to play it, though there's also Liliana of the Veil as an option for him.
Yeah, but it would probably mainly serve as something so that he can get rid of his opponent's creature, because the plus mode would hurt him more than help him, really, in this spot at least.
Well, another Shardless Agent drawn there by Pierre Sommen. Also worth noting that the Ancestral Vision in Daniel Toledo's hand, that's almost not really where he wants it here. He'd much rather just find one nice and easy. But hits an Abrupt Decay here off the Shardless Agent, that meaning that Liliana not long for this world, it would seem.
It goes for Liliana, which I'm a little surprised about.
But it sounds like our other match is now ready to hit game 3, so we're going to get a chance to jump back and find out how Martin Dang is doing against his opponent there. We can see them just checking out the screens. Disfigure the early answer to that Delver of Secrets. Martin Dang, he's not going to get the super easy Delver flip, beat you in the face for 7 turns plan going.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite plans. Just play an early Delver and daze and Force of Will your way to victory.
Yeah, I mean, when people ask me to define tempo and sort of what that means in Magic, I think this is one of the best examples of a tempo deck, which is, I'm not trying to control the game forevermore. I'm trying to get a threat in play and control the game for just long enough, just enough time, enough tempo that I can win the game with whatever threats I might have going.
Yeah. So you could have seen a very interesting trick from Martin. Actually, Martin drew 3 cards with that Brainstorm, but then shuffled his hand so that his opponent wouldn't get the extra information about which of the cards that he has drawn he is putting back on top of his library. I don't think it's very relevant in this scenario, but sometimes it can actually be if your opponent has seen your hand before. You don't want to give them that kind of extra information, even though it's very marginal in the end.
Yeah, but it's the sort of thing that if you get into that habit in situations where it doesn't matter, then it's not even something you're thinking about.
Yep.
You're saving mental energy for the times when you really need it.
Exactly.
So Dang fetching up the Underground Sea and playing a Gitaxian Probe there. Looks like he's doing so for the Phyrexian mana cost. And sees Maelstrom Pulse. Wow, there's a whole range of different cards here. Liliana of the Veil, Blue Elemental Blast. There's an Abrupt Decay there and a Golgari Charm. So
yeah, that's a very wide assortment of cards, especially just only on 2 lands there. I mean, if Martin Dang here had a Wasteland, like, this game could be effectively over if he had any sort of pressure. Just 2 lands and 2 3-drops, 2 conditional removal spells, and even the blue elemental blast is not the greatest, but at least it does kill a young pyromancer. But not much else. It hits lightning bolt. At least that's a thing. Martin Deng does have the young pyromancer in his hand. Let's see if he's going to ponder as well.
I mean, it's interesting to me that this is the format with the most 1-mana blue deck manipulation spells available, even compared to Vintage. Many of the best spells in Legacy, your Ponders, your Brainstorms, your Preordains, are restricted in Vintage.
You can only play 1, but in Legacy you can play 4.
It's an exciting place to be.
But on the other hand, at least in Legacy you can't play 4 Ancestral Recalls.
This is true. Likewise, I mean, I guess that part of the reason they're so powerful in Vintage is you're drawing into some of the most powerful cards ever printed.
Yeah, of course. Your Moxen and your Lotuses.
Well, we were talking about Wasteland. Wasteland on Vnukov's side of the board, certainly not a bad draw. It's interesting to me that Wasteland is another one of the cornerstones of the format because it is one of the ways of keeping people honest if they're trying to make the most of these dual lands.
Yeah, definitely. And but Artem is in a position where playing, like using the Wasteland is the last thing he wants to be doing because he has all these three casting cost cards. But here Martin's gonna be able to daze it. Let's see if he can. Martin can draw the Wasteland here. No, just a Brainstorm. I mean, we know about the Brainstorm from the Ponder anyway, so.
If he wants it, there's another spin of the wheel though with that Brainstorm.
Of course, yeah, he can go for one more. The problem is like he could cast Young Pyromancer here, but he doesn't have any way to protect it from the blue elemental blast, and he also knows about Maelstrom Pulse, Golgari Charm as well. It looks like Artem was like really scared of the Young Pyromancers, so Martin just knows now that his Young Pyromancers are just gonna die. It can die in so many different ways, even if he protected it once. There's just so much more coming in the next turns. You could just play Deathrite Shaman maybe, and hope that that Artem will be forced to like Maelstrom Pulse it.
Back comes the Volcanic Island. That's one that Vnukov knew about thanks to it having been bounced with Daze. Here's the Brainstorm.
He did draw. You see, there's the shuffle again.
Did draw the Wasteland, but I kind of like getting at least one extra land in play before you start Wastelanding here.
Yeah.
You know that your opponent's got enough mana to be able to get things going, and if you waste anything other than your opponent's Wasteland, you're potentially putting yourself back down to one land, which is, or even zero land briefly, which is a scary place to be.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is what Martin is trying to accomplish here. If he has the Angler or Deathrite Shaman here, I think he can play Deathrite Shaman here. So he will try to force maybe Artem to spend his whole turn killing the Deathrite Shaman, unless Artem just draws something good here, because we know he has the Maelstrom Pulse. Well, it looks like he has two. Okay, he has the Abrupt Decay, but look, he spent his whole turn doing this. And now what Martin can actually do, he can Wasteland the Underground Sea from Artem, play the Young Pyromancer, and suddenly there's no Golgari Charm that can be played with those kind of lands. No Blue Elemental Blast, so on. So he just he went into engineering a position which will allow him to maximize his Young Pyromancer.
Yeah, because it's not just about volume of lands in play, it's about colors here.
Yeah.
Even though there's a Wasteland and a Bayou available to Vnukov, his hand is almost exclusively gold cards. Yeah. At least as far as Martin Dang and we know.
And it cuts off any potential like Brainstorms, Shardless Agents, and other things. He did draw a Tarmogoyf though, which is pretty good. I think Martin has I believe he has a Painful Truths in his hand that he sideboarded in. Yeah, they're counting now. That Tarmogoyf is going to be big.
5/6.
Liliano in the graveyard.
And of course, Shardless Agent is an artifact creature, which potentially also a big deal when it comes to Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, Baleful Strix as well. Yeah, it's really easy to make your Goyf big in Legacy, that's for sure, if you try. Now Martin, if Martin resolves that Painful Truth and Artem doesn't play a land, Martin will be in great shape for the following turns. That won't even care that much about the Goif since he can just chump it if it attacks.
Painful Truths, another card that has been able to make the leap into Legacy. It's not an easy thing to do. As newer sets come out, I mean, every now and again we'll see something like Oath of the Gatewatch bringing an entire plethora of Eldrazi, but here, Painful Truths, 4/3, generating a token, costing Martin Dang 3 life, but I don't think he minds too much because 3 cards is a bounty haul.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we're lovers of value, and getting not only to get to draw 3 cards, but getting a 1/1 creature is very nice value indeed.
Of course, the one downside, I guess, of Painful Truths is if you were playing with Shardless Agent, it just doesn't work. It's not something that's really available to Artem Vnukov, even though they're playing very similar colors.
It also costs 3 mana, so...
Oh, good point, sorry. I'm thinking of my Bloodbraid Elves.
Yeah, exactly, that's the one. No, and then you won't even get to do this in Modern anyway, just because Bloodbraid Elf is not legal in Modern yet. We'll see what happens.
You never know.
Might change, so... but Artem did draw the land there. Very fortunate for him. If he hadn't, he would be, I think, pretty far behind in this game.
I can't say I'm sad to see plenty of, sort of real Magic with lands in play for both players.
But still, it's fine for Martin. He has a full grip. He has the Gurmag Angler as well. He knows there's still a Maelstrom Pulse in Artem's hand, so without at least a Daze, I'd be very worried about playing Gurmag Angler here. But he could also play a Young Pyromancer, Brainstorm. There's a lot of options, even though we know Artem still has that Golgari Charm and Maelstrom Pulse in his hand.
Pyro number 2, immediately getting another token thanks to that Brainstorm there. Shuffle, shuffle, shuffle.
Yeah, that's what you do, Martin Dang.
If you do it every time, then it's easy. When you start having to think about it, then you're wasting time thinking about it.
True.
Do we have anything else from Martin Dang before he passes things back? Young Pyromancer will provide just a slew of blockers for that Tarmogoyf. Looks like he's thinking about Gurmag Angler.
Yep. I like it because now with the way that Artem Vnukov has his mana, Artem will not be able to play Maelstrom Pulse and Golgari Charm in the same turn. So it forces Vnukov to really decide which one of the two he wants to use. Does he want to get rid of the Young Pyromancer, which I assume will happen? And it looks like Martin is trying to exile cards so that the Goyf gets smaller.
So he's exiling 3 sorceries and 3
creatures
there.
He only has instants and lands in his graveyard. And
but it looks like he's exiling 6 cards there.
Yeah, that's correct.
Gurmag
it's 6 and a black.
6 and a black. Okay.
Yeah, Tassiger is 5 and a black.
There we go.
And Gurmag is 1 more for the extra power. You gotta pay that extra card. So it's actually accurate. And you see it shrunk to a 3/4 now. Highly relevant on this board.
The secret extra ability of Gurmag Angler to shrink your opponent's Tarmogoyfs.
Yeah, always helps. But he'll be able to grow it back up to big size fairly soon. So
well, that's a sorcery and a creature going to the graveyard.
Exactly. So it's a 5/6 again.
Boom.
Dang.
Elemental down.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised Martin went for the Gurmag Angler. Now that I've seen his hand, he has a Spell Pierce. So I would have preferred to hold up the Spell Pierce because Artem Vnukov, without having drawn the land, and if he went for a Golgari Charm, he could have Spell Pierced that. He did draw a land, but you never know.
And we can see one of the stark differences here between the likes of this Grixis Delver list and something like Miracles. Here, you're a little bit keener to thin your deck by activating your fetch lands to fetch lands just as and when, as opposed to the Miracles deck, which carefully uses every shuffle to really make sure that the top of its deck's where you want it to be. This Cataxian Probe, not played using Phyrexian mana, reveals another Abrupt Decay and a copy of Golgari Charm that has been hanging out there for a while now.
And Martin Dang just seeing the bad news in a way. Like
Right.
it's fine getting those tokens from the young Pyromancer, but if they're gonna die to Golgari Charm, it's certainly not the greatest.
Probe into probe, followed by a young Pyromancer attack here.
Can't really play anything here. Artem really drawing those lands at the right time there. Like without the third land, he would have been long dead under a slew of 1/1 elementals.
So the creatures in play getting a little bit smaller, that enough to deal with all of Martin Dang's creatures. Though it did mean that Tarmogoyf was only attacking for 4 rather than 5. And Dang being knocked off green mana for what that's worth.
Is this the final one?
I think this is the 3rd of 4.
Yeah, but there's another Abrupt Decay in Artem's hands, so at least he gets some value here.
Yeah, Dang knows that there's that Abrupt Decay is coming, so he's going to make the most of the young Pyromancer for the brief moments that he's able to.
Draws a Gurmag Angler.
Unfortunately, tapped his mana such that he's not going to be able to cast it this turn.
No, but he can still play a Delver, or he can hold up Spell Pierce, but I'm not a fan of that against an Abrupt Decay.
Yeah, I mean, this way around he's holding up Lightning Bolt as well. No, let's just commit some more creatures to the board, says Martin Dang.
He finally made Artem play the Golgari Charm, so certainly not afraid to do that.
Lovely stuff. Baleful Strix drawing a card for Artem Vnukov. Only needs to find 8 more points of damage in order to take Martin Dang out this round. Dang, who has been chump blocking turn after turn with elemental tokens against that Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, he has trouble with the Tarmogoyf. You can see that's the reason to play green in Legacy, right? Tarmogoyf.
It's a big deal. I mean, even if Gurmag Angler comes down, it's not going to be as large as that Tarmogoyf. Going to need a little help on the blocks if it's going to take down a 2-cost creature. And help is not on its way. That Abrupt Decay dealing with young Pyromancer. And while Delver's Secrets does flip, revealing a Dismember, I don't know that Martin Dang can afford to be paying too much life on that Dismember. He may be tapping his Underground Seas for black mana here.
Yeah, but he also has the Lightning Bolt. So actually, he has he can. Okay, so I think he also has the Gurmag Angler. I'm not sure if, like now with the artifact in the graveyard, I'm not sure if he can make it that much smaller at all because, yeah, there's a Maelstrom Pulse that was played as well, right?
Yeah, but I think that just off Artem Vnukov's graveyard, that
still
Tarmogoyf is just a gigantic monster.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's still fine for Martin Dang because Martin will be able to. He'll still get to exile some cards. He has the Dismember in his hand, and Artem Vnukov knows about it as well. So if Artem attacks with the Goyf, Martin can play the Dismember and block with the Gurmag Angler and definitely kill the Tarmogoyf. And Charlotte's Agent decks don't really run that much counter magic. They're just Force of Wills. And
I guess that they're a tough card to cascade into.
oh, there's the Agent.
Well, he'd much rather not draw those 3 lands and instead draw 3 additional cards thanks to Ancestral Vision.
Yes, but Martin finally finds a use for his Spell Pierce here. Gets to counter the Ancestral Visions here. Oh, Flusterstorm's back.
All of the copies targeting that Spell Pierce, that'll be enough to make sure that this big card drawer resolves.
I have to say I've quite enjoyed the draws from Artem Vnukov in this game. He has drawn a land when he needed, the spell when he needed, just exactly what he needed to come back into the game.
Yeah, there's been a very back and forth game, and when you have 2 decks as focused on achieving incremental advantages as you do, this was always going to be a fun match.
Yeah. He's attacking. Martin Dang not scared there. Goes for the dismember. Goes down to 4 though, but gets Tarmogoyf off the table finally. Now interested if what he's going to swing with. I would swing with both immediately. Jump block. That was an interesting sequence. I wonder what Artem has in his hand for him to play it in this way. Especially in such tense moments.
It was a fairly aggressive line and one that ultimately didn't pay out for him. I mean, Dang now on 4. So not too much work to do, but in terms of reach, I would say that Martin Dang is the one who has the deck that's able to more quickly turn things around off a small advantage. Dang electing to play his land, empty-handed magic now, and it looks like now we know why they were being aggressive. That big giant die at the top of the screen indicates they're on turn 1 of additional turns. Time has been called. Once it gets to the end of turn 5, that's the end of the game, and we would, at this point, have a draw.
Yep. Ah, that explains the aggressiveness. Double Deathrite Shaman.
Well, there's plenty of spells in Martin Dang's graveyard, and indeed in Artem Vnukov's. This could mean a swift exit for Martin Dang here. Additionally, there are enough blockers available for Artem Vnukov that he can soak up attacks here coming through from Martin Dang.
Yeah, I was wondering why he was being so aggressive. But now it all makes sense. Having drawn two Deathrite Shamans off that Ancestral Visions, and even having a Tarmogoyf as well, he was just able to put them on. Yeah.
So the desperation attack from Martin Dang there, hoping that somehow or other Artem Vnukov forgot that he had any creatures in play. That did not work out too well for him. And Artem Vnukov picks up the win against Pro Tour winner Martin Dang. That the last of our regularly scheduled matches here in the feature match area for round 5. So we will bid you adieu from round 5 for myself, Tim Willoughby and Matej Zalkai. But do stay tuned because there is a lot more magic available for you here at GP Prague.
Outfit your Magic collection with the newest Shadows over Innistrad accessories from Ultra Pro. You can see the full array of card sleeves, deck boxes, play